All right, hi everyone, I'm Jason. I'm one of the co-founders of Story Protocol and really excited to be here. So before jumping into crypto, I was actually a product manager at DeepMind, so it's cool to have the intersection of these two worlds and see so many people interested in these ideas. So today I will spend like 5 minutes going over Story Protocol, sort of our mission, our thesis. I wanted to do a live demo, but I think with the computer situation may be hard, so I'm gonna talk over a recorded demo and then just leave a lot of time for questions. So the fundamental perplexity, I think, that really started off Story Protocol is thinking about what's wrong with creativity today. And if you think about it from first principles, we should be living in a digital renaissance and a golden age of creativity. Social media gives everyone global distribution, so people have access to the entire world when they post their art or their video from their living room. And AI is, as you guys know, making all of this extremely high production quality. So with the recent Sora models from OpenAI, people have not only global distribution in their living room, but they also have access to essentially a Hollywood tier studio. So what we have is basically this exponentially growing abundance of high quality content that anyone in the world can create and anyone in the world can consume. And it's taken AI only a year and a half to generate the amount of images that it took photography 150 years to make. And if you go all the way back to just simple drawing, that's got to be at least 1,500 years. But despite everyone having this global distribution and godlike tools to create, there is no golden age of creativity. If you looked at Hollywood in the past year, they had 6-month strikes in both the actors and the writers. And so you can see that creativity is struggling, and even digital native creators are having a hard time making a living from doing what they love. And the real problem, we believe, is not because the performance of AI is not good enough, because as you can tell, it's already world class. And it's not because the speed isn't high enough. It's really because there isn't an internet native way of monetizing and creating an attribution and provenance layer for IP. So what we're seeing now is basically another Napster moment where AI remixing is not going to stop. There's no way to shut this down. There's models that are open source, there's OpenAI, there's a plethora of options. So people are going to continue to create interesting things like Harry Potter and Balenciaga video that got 10 million views on YouTube. Or they're gonna go in their living room and start rapping and create like this Drake and The Weeknd remix that neither Drake nor The Weeknd actually got involved in and shot up to #1 on SoundCloud in a day. Like these are all amazing pieces of content in this great explosion of creativity, but right now it's a lose-lose situation because the people who created that song and the person that created that video, they weren't able to earn anything for their creativity, and neither was J.K. Rowling or Drake or The Weeknd. So both the original creator and the remixer are losing out. And you can see this fractures are starting to come out, and I appreciated the grass presentation because we're all touching on the same issues. Like the New York Times is suing OpenAI, Getty Images is suing OpenAI because they're recreating the watermarks. We have no idea what we're doing, right? Like this is kind of just an open ground, and I think we know that AI is going to get better. That's going to happen, that's inevitable, but we're in a moment where we actually have some agency over the future of how this plays out. Right? And the future is either going to be a walled garden ecosystem where people have to go to specific large providers, or it's going to be open, and the only way to make it open is to provide attribution and compensation for creators. So this is a classic problem in economics. It's called tragedy of the commons, right? We have free internet data that everyone is scraping, and all these creatives are putting their work online, and they're doing it for distribution. But what's happening is that these AI companies are taking it and leveraging it to create outputs that don't actually monetize back to the original creators, right? So just to give a very simple example, Google at least will point to the New York Times, as the previous presenter mentions, right? But now you have Perplexity, which it's a lot easier, but it doesn't actually point to the original website. So now you have no incentive to create a website because Perplexity will summarize it for you. And if you don't give people the incentive to create, whether it's art or whether it's a website like the New York Times, those websites will die out. So we're going to see a global optima where AI will continue getting better and better, but then the data sources that it uses to survive and improve will wither out because everyone is using them and no one is compensating them. So we believe that the internet really needs a new IP infrastructure that's suited for the digital age. The first copyright laws were actually created after the invention of the Gutenberg printing press, right? And because Gutenberg printing press allowed people to replicate and copy for free, and that was a huge problem. So we needed to create a new IP infrastructure for that. And now the current copyright regime is still kind of stuck in that medieval age because all it knows is people copying things. That's why it's called copyright. But now we have generative AI, and that's actually creating brand new material. So we have a completely unprecedented type of challenge, and we hope to be able to solve it using blockchain. And the way that Story Protocol is tackling this is by building a programmable IP layer. And what does programmable IP mean? It means allowing IPs to move on chain and allowing creators to set for each individual piece of IP autonomous on-chain rules for engagement for how people can remix, license, and monetize that work. So it's almost the same thing that DeFi did for money, we want to do for IP. In the same way that a dollar bill from your wallet is very static and it can only work in a specific restaurant or corner store that you're going to, but when it's on chain, it can plug into this entire ecosystem of services that can permissionlessly build on top of it. We want to do the same thing for intellectual property, and I think that's what the programmable IP layer is designed to do. Now you may ask, why not NFTs, right? Don't NFTs kind of solve this problem? And we think they provide a foundational primitive, and it's a good start because it brings media on chain. But IP is so much more than media. IP is media plus rights, and rights that are actually protected. So what we're trying to do is bring NFTs out of this sort of static, isolated stage. Because even today, I can have a Bored Ape, or I can have an Azuki, or I can have a Pudgy. But basically, the only thing I can really do with it is trade it, right? And if I wanted to create a comic book with, let's say, a Pudgy and my friend's Azuki, I would have to read the license that I have for my Pudgy, and I have to go read the really complicated legal license for that Pudgy Penguins, and then probably have my lawyers talk to their lawyers to figure something out. So you can see the moment you want to compose, you're already back to square one. You're already back to the pen and paper legal system. And so we really think, the promise of composability has been realized in DeFi. You can actually plug one token in and swap it and then lend it, and there's all these other things you can do autonomously. But that's just not the case for IP, and that's why we're building a programmable IP layer at Story Protocol to bring us out of the world of static JPEGs and move into a world of programmable IP where you not only have the underlying media file, but also modules that have been built in so that anyone can bring their royalty permissions, their remixing permissions, and even the ability to generate a legally binding license on chain without any intermediaries. And the way we do this, one of the ways, is that we've actually worked with lawyers to create what we call the programmable IP license. And that's a real legally binding contract with a set of parameters around monetization and remixing that then actually map one-to-one to our on-chain smart contract parameters. So what we're doing is creating a real tangible link between the legal worlds and the world of blockchain. And just like DeFi creates a new Rails for finance, we're creating a new Rails for IP. And so in the end of the day, we want to see IP be registered from a creator tool, move to a licensed NFT marketplace, and then maybe someone licenses that and posts it on social media where it blows up, and that can maybe become a comic book. And all of this is being facilitated permissionlessly, just like in DeFi, through Story Protocol's programmable IP layer. So really, we think IP will look like this in the future. Not these siloed individual walled gardens, but this network that flows where each individual node is an IP, and each line or connection between the two is basically encoding really complex economic and legal rights. So that's a lot of abstract talking, and I want to kind of show you guys what this actually looks like. Over. So this is a Web2 app called Magma that has over 2 million users. They're basically like a Figma for visual artists, and we've actually integrated with Magma to register all their IPs on Story Protocol. So this is what the UI looks like. You can see I just made like a crappy smiley face, and then I'm actually going to register this on Story Protocol. So you can see there's an interface where it can put in the rights associated with the work, as well as the authors and ownership and a description. And all of this, these are all Web2 users, by the way. So we're abstracting away all the wallets and all the gas fees and everything. And you can see if you click here, there's actually like different options for the licensing, and it'll go into detail about what these on-chain rights are. So the next part is like, in that first part, I registered that IP on Story Protocol, and then now I'm logged in as a different user. And this different user is going to use a generative AI feature that Magma has built in to actually enhance this specific character. So you can see this is not just single player IP creation. This is a multiplayer game where different people can work on a single IP together and possibly using generative AI. So that loaded, and now you have this rainbow creature, and it's now registered again on Story Protocol. So you can see here, oh, that's not the right screen. Let's skip to, right. Okay, so you can see here when it gets registered on Story Protocol, we actually built like an Etherscan-like app for Story Protocol called our Story Protocol Explorer. And you can see the original smiley face that I made here. You can also see the additional edit that someone else made with the AI. And you can see that the ownership split is actually 50-50. And it's recorded on chain with all the royalties handled automatically. And you can even see here that this says AI assisted. So one of the big use cases that Magma wants to use us for is to detect whether a given piece of created work has had AI used on it or not. And another interesting idea I want to showcase, and Ethan here is actually, we're working with MyShell. So another idea, and sorry this isn't live, so I want to just talk through how this would work. But imagine this fire creature that we just created on Magma gets really popular, and people want to interact with it in a character style, right? So MyShell is providing this wonderful interface where you can actually engage with characters. Using Story Protocol, we've already built this integration. You can actually license out that IP registered on Magma to MyShell into an AI character, and that AI model is itself stored on chain. So we've actually already built this. So you can see this slowly building an entire ecosystem where IP can move. It's not siloed in one app. It can actually be registered on one app and move to another, and all the monetization and licensing rights are handled by Story Protocol. And now I want to show you another example, which is with Lens. So we've actually integrated with Lens so that every single Lens post is registered on Story Protocol. And the way that this looks is you can make a post, and essentially there is a button on the post screen where you can register it as an intellectual property on Story Protocol. Once you're on that screen, you can give a name to the post. You can choose a specific type of license in terms that you want. You click Save, you click Publish, and then ultimately this is the post that gets made. And you can see there's a copyright button here. So unlike other posts, this one, because it's registered on Story Protocol, there's an icon that shows all the rights associated with it. And if you click on the icon, you can actually see the rights. So now I just want to walk through, use your imagination, but walk you through a potential user journey, which is you register an IP on Magma, then someone licenses it and shares it on a social media platform like Hey. That blows up, gets really popular, and then someone creates an AI chatbot from it on MyShell. All of this can happen permissionlessly, just like the way that DeFi moves through different protocols without needing any sort of intermediaries. And just to give one last visual, we actually built another demo called Artscast, and that's built permissionlessly with Farcaster frames. So the idea, we actually integrated stability on the back end here. The idea is basically someone can register an image with a prompt, and then anyone else can look at that Farcast or Artscast on Farcaster frames and add their own prompt, which remixes down this chain. So it's really interesting. On the first day we launched it, we actually got a lot of activity, or a lot of organic growth, and you can actually see this one I picked out because there's actually a lot. So it evolves from this dog, it evolved from a normal looking dog to one with pink background and then one with a Red Bull hat, right? And all of this is permissionless, and all of the IPs are tracked in this big graph. So you can see here that we actually show people this graph. I believe the originating node is right here, and the node that we're seeing is so far out that it's not even on the screen. So think about this IP graph. Every single IP is connected to every other IP on Story Protocol permissionlessly, and even though in this demo it's all from this Artcast app, imagine in the future, like I mentioned, each dot might come from a different app. Each dot might be a different medium. So it might be this dog in a t-shirt, it might be this dog in a song, it might be this dog in MyShell. And so you have this IP graph that any app can register onto, and any app can use. And that's really important for content businesses because it allows them to solve the cold start problem. If you're a social media platform, or if you are a creator platform, you don't have to bootstrap with a new set of users. You can actually register, you can actually pull from and license and remix all of the IPs that are already stored on Story Protocol. So that's kind of the vision for what we're doing. Sorry I didn't get to do a live demo, but hopefully that clarifies a little bit about the programmable IP layer, and would love to share more offline. Thank you. Yes.
Oh yeah, sorry, this chair is sick. Yeah. So can someone retroactively claim their IP using Story Protocol?
Yeah, so the way that we built this out is we're using token-bound accounts, so any existing NFT can register on Story Protocol.
Got it.
Yeah.
What about non-NFTs? What if someone wrote a bunch of articles or made a bunch of videos on YouTube?
Yes, they could do that. So the way that we're currently building this is that we assume that every IP is represented as an NFT. So we have functions in our SDK that allow you to, in one step, mint a new NFT, tie the token URI, and also register on Story Protocol.
But you have a way to avoid someone fake minting one, right?
Yeah, this is a good question. So there's multiple layers to this, right? The core protocol layer actually doesn't do any checks. It's meant to be very sparse so that other people can build on top. But we've talked to partners that are integrating with us that essentially use AI to detect whether any image or text being registered on Story Protocol is in violation. And so the thing that our kind of core thesis is, we're building this, just like TCP IP or SMTP, the early Web1 protocols, they succeeded because they were really, really kind of dumb and simple and sparse. And we want people to build on top of that. And we think there's real businesses that can even offer services of just checking whether things are copyright infringed on the protocol. And we've also built we're building this, just like you are, I think this sort of proof of stake consensus mechanism that allows people to sort of stake whether they believe an IP is legitimate or not. And there's token economics around if there's a lot of IPs, then it's probably honest. But then if there's a dispute and that dispute is correct, then that would get burned. So just different ways of approaching it. But at the end of the day, you're right. The core protocol doesn't check for anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's totally fine. Yeah, but I think we should talk. Good thing of a few things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yes.
How to define the pattern, right? When many people prompt one image or IP.
Yeah. So there's multiple ways we try to do this. The first is that we think that the blockchain itself is a good source of provenance, right? So if someone registered first, that's probably a good indication that they are the one that own it. But because we've actually created this legal contract that people tie to their IP, if they're in violation, it's actually a legal violation, right? So we have this on-chain dispute mechanism where if I see that you registered my IP on Story Protocol and I haven't registered yet, I can raise a dispute, right? And there's a process that we decide whether that dispute goes through or not. But at the end of the day, if the on-chain mechanisms aren't working, you can always take it to court because we've actually created this license, right? We don't actually want people to do that because the whole point is let's go out of this slow system that doesn't really work for people. But we also believe that at the end of the day, you need different layers of escalation. So the first layer is, assume everyone's honest, optimistically, right? And the second layer is provide fraud proofs, basically, for people to dispute on-chain. But the third layer is that if people don't agree with even that, then by their own agency, they can go and take it to court if they want to. Yeah. Cool. All right. Thanks, guys.